Welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I am Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines.
I'm here to announce the completion of our withdrawal from Afghanistan and the end of the military mission to evacuate American citizens. And the last manned aircraft is now clearing the airspace above Afghanistan.
The United States has completed its withdrawal from Afghanistan, ending 20 years of a military presence. In a statement, President Joe Biden said the world will hold the Taliban to its commitment to allow safe passage for those that want to leave Afghanistan. Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid says the group wants good relations with the world, including the US. Meanwhile, the resistance forces say 8 Taliban fighters have been killed during fighting in the Panjshir Valley. Pakistan has called on the international community to differentiate between the spoilers and supporters of peace and stability in Afghanistan. Addressing a press conference along with German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas in Islamabad, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said Pakistan wants peace in Afghanistan and the world must support us. For his part, the German Foreign Minister thanked Pakistan for the safe evacuation of foreign nationals from Kabul. The Arab coalition says it has intercepted an explosive-laden drone launched by Yemen's Houthi rebels towards Saudi Arabia's Abha International Airport. Earlier, the coalition downed 4 Houthi projectiles fired towards southern Kingdom in last 2 days. Meanwhile, Yemeni army said at least 23 Houthi rebels were killed in clashes with government forces in Marib province. Mexico has reported 326 deaths and over 5,000 infections in the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 118 more people lost their lives to the virus and 3,800 tested positive overnight. Globally, the coronavirus caseload has surpassed 217 million, while the death toll is over 4.5 million. Well, those were the headlines. News and deal coming after a short break. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. The United States has completed its withdrawal from Afghanistan, ending 20 years of its military presence. President Joe Biden says the world will hold the Taliban to their commitment to allow safe passage for those who want to leave Afghanistan. Details in the following report.
Foreign forces' departure from Afghanistan marks the end of a fraught, chaotic and bloody exit from the years' longest war. Nearly 2,500 US troops and an estimated 240,000 Afghans lost their lives in the war that cost some $2 trillion. The US Embassy in Kabul has suspended operations, saying it will continue to assist American citizens and their families in Afghanistan from Doha, Qatar. More than 122,000 people have been airlifted out of Kabul since 14th of August, the day before the Taliban regained control of the country 2 decades after being removed from power by the US-led invasion in 2001. The withdrawal was announced by General Frank McKenzie, who told a Pentagon briefing that the chief of US diplomat in Afghanistan, Ross Wilson, was on the last C-17 flight out.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to announce the completion of our withdrawal from Afghanistan and the end of the military mission to evacuate American citizens, third country nationals, and vulnerable Afghans. The last C-17 lifted off from Hamid Karzai International Airport on August 30th this afternoon at 3:29 p.m. East Coast time.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken vowed that the Biden administration will keep up relentless efforts for evacuations. Blinken said fewer than 200 US citizens were believed to have remained in Afghanistan. Speaking at the State Department, he also said the Taliban have to earn international legitimacy and support.
We will stay focused on counterterrorism. The Taliban has made a commitment to prevent terrorist groups from using Afghanistan as a base for external operations that could threaten the United States or our allies, including Al-Qaeda and the Taliban's sworn enemy, ISIS-K. Here, too, we will hold them accountable to that commitment.
After the last US aircraft left Kabul, the Taliban fired celebratory shots as they took control of the airport. Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid said America has been defeated and it did not achieve all its objectives. However, he said the Taliban want good relations with the whole world, including the United States. Shortly before the US withdrawal, the UN Security Council adopted a resolution requiring the Taliban to let people freely leave Afghanistan. But the measure did not include a safe zone mentioned by French President Emmanuel Macron.
In Afghanistan, at least 8 Taliban have been killed during clashes with militia fighters in the Panjshir Valley. A spokesman for the National Resistance Forces said the Taliban attacked group's position on western entrance to the valley. He said the resistance forces repulsed the attack, in which 8 Taliban and 2 of the NRF force members were wounded. In another development, France says the Taliban are in talks with Qatar and Turkey about the security and management of Kabul airport. Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian said people who want to leave Afghanistan can do so using commercial flights. Le Drian said Paris must continue to put pressure on the Taliban, but is not negotiating with them. For more on this, we have with us Sumaira Khan, our correspondent from Kabul. Sumaira, can you please walk us through last night's final stages of US withdrawal from Afghanistan?
Thank you so much. Yes, it was a historical day and a night for the people of Afghanistan and for the incumbent setup of Afghanistan that has just taken over the country. And right now they are obviously in a struggle to get it legitimized as well. But last night, the scenes we saw, the scenes we are witness to, they will be part of history forever. When we saw the last American soldier leaving Afghanistan was Major General Chris Denau, commander of the U.S. Army, and he's also commander of the 82nd Airborne Division. So when he boarded the last C-17 Globemaster plane at the Hamid Karzai International Airport, they specifically took a picture of him boarding the plane, and this shows that even U.S. is right now in a struggle to keep the Taliban satisfied that yes, we are honoring our commitment that we'll be withdrawing from Afghanistan on the night of 31st August, 30th and 31st August, which was the deadline for this greatest withdrawal from Afghanistan. So last night we also started receiving information from both quarters, from Taliban as well and from the U.S. officers, from the Central Command officers, that U.S. is right now boarding the last dispatch of around 800 soldiers from different infantry and marine brigades, and there was a big number of airmen crew as well, because it was the airmen crew that was handling the ATC and other technical departments, and some were deployed on carrying out the air defense system operations as well. So this was the last contingent of 800 U.S. soldiers. And they flew out of Afghanistan last night, and then you already shared the details that how the night was celebrated by the Taliban quarters on the streets of Kabul. We saw sentiments everywhere. We saw the crying scouts of Taliban. We saw them chanting Nara Takbir and Allahu Akbar everywhere. They just fell into sajdas, and they offered the nawafil of Shukrana. So there was a kind of a very emotional scene that anyone could understood that yes, a 20 years long war has been brought to an end, and the spokesperson of Taliban Zabiullah Mujahid. We tried to establish contact with him, but we received a voice note, and he said thanks to everyone. But at the same time, he also said his message to me was that we are trying to take care of every sister and brother who's a journalist and who's serving right now in Afghanistan, and they're reporting from the ground. But we want you safe, so please be careful and be safe everywhere. So. I can just say that the days ahead in Afghanistan and the days we just spent in Afghanistan, there will be a drastic difference. Right now, the security apparatus is being discussed by the Taliban leadership in Kandahar, and they are also deliberating upon how to contain ISIS-K. And apart from this, I think the sentiment I saw in amongst the people of Afghanistan, to be very honest, there is still fear. They are scared, but they're very uncertain about the future as well. But I think if the Taliban, as Secretary Blinken said, if the Taliban are in the right direction and the right measures to take, I think the country will be back on track once again. And I hope that he keeps the word as well, that yes, the international community is there, and the aid flow is going to be through the international agencies to Afghanistan. So it means he is giving a hope that Afghanistan will not be abandoned in a way that it sees a kind of humanitarian crisis. Pakistan is already there. Pakistan is in contact with the WHO and other international agencies to thwart that humanitarian crisis. But yes, we need bigger countries to come and join hands to thwart that. So we hope for the best.
Right. Sumaira, what is the general feeling on the ground in Afghanistan this morning with the country's foreign occupation ending after 20 long years?
Yes, we are keeping our fingers crossed. We are looking towards the Kandahar. Kandahar is right now the base for the incumbent military, the incumbent Taliban leadership. And in a day or two, we can see an announcement. We are just trying to keep a track on every development that comes from Kandahar. But we are also hearing that there is a round of consultation on where to announce the formation of government. And if they announce the formation of government not in Kabul, then yes, this is going to be at Kandahar, because these are mixed reports from the authorities right now. So this is one news right now, and the second news is regarding there is a pressure on Taliban quarters to announce the government formation at Doha. So these three options are right. So these three options are right now under consideration. But we can very surely say that the negotiation team that has been called back from Panjshir, they also joined the consultation teams at Kandahar. So I guess the formation of government is due in a day or two. So it's quite nearby now.
Right. Sumaira, the Taliban said they would announce the status of government formation right after the completion of U.S. withdrawal. Is there any progress on that front?
Panjshir is, Panjshir, all of a sudden it saw a turn of events last night when Maulana Turabi and Aminul Haq, after the arrival of Aminul Haq, Maulana Turabi was called to Kandahar and along with his team. And there were contingents who started advancing towards Panjshir Valley. And we also heard news of initial clash of the people of Valley and Taliban contingents. But the Taliban are, for the first time, they're advancing from the Badakhshan and Andarab directions to the Valley. So we are still waiting for the ground realities to reach us, because there is no communication right now. And we are unable to reach our sources as well, because they are right now out of communication. But in the next couple of hours, yes, unfortunately, we are hearing a news of clashes, deadly clashes, but we still want to confirm it before we claim anything.
Thank you for updating us, Sumaira Khan. And now we are joined by Naeem Khalid Lodi, a defense analyst. Sir, thank you for your time. Now, Mr. Lodi, do you believe that former U.S. President Donald Trump made the right decision to leave Afghanistan?
You see, there are no other option. As far as I think, they were already late when Donald Trump made that decision, because initially they had a mandate from UN Security Council and a large part of the world, where they entered Afghanistan to take care of Al-Qaeda. And I think they did that within 2 years. And even if they were after Osama bin Laden, he was killed 10 years, in 2010-11. So any stay beyond that was, in my opinion, not only illegitimate, but also without any clear-cut objective. And that is what their generals have been saying. That is what their politicians have been saying. And I think that is the truth. So Donald Trump made the right decision. How they would have left Afghanistan and what more they should have left it, when they should have gone, that can be debated. But I think the decision was just on dot.
Right. Mr. Lodhi, how would characterize the manner in which this U.S. withdrawal was conducted?
Actually, you see, there are two statements which are coming up. One is that they left in a hurry. So I would say that if you are in a country for 20 years and you leave after 20 years, so there's no hurry. The other thing is maybe once it was decided that they will be leaving, they made this decision 2 years back, which means again this much of time for any force to leave a country is good enough. The only thing where they went wrong, in my opinion, about the assessment, how much time the Afghan Taliban will take to actually recover the entire country. There they went drastically wrong. They thought they will have a jolly good time and there will be no pressure on them and they can leave, without any duress and all that. That is one thing where they went wrong. The other, I think the world was expecting that maybe they wanted a rapprochement between Afghan government and Afghan Taliban. They might be saying that, but in my own assessment, they always wanted to leave Afghanistan in chaos, and that is what they've done.
Right. Mr. Lodhi, with the American withdrawal now completed, do you agree with U.S. President Biden that Washington achieved its objectives in Afghanistan?
That is what I said, that if that was the objective, that was achieved in the first 2 years of the war. 18 years back. And if you double that time, okay, they would have achieved it in 4 years. But staying here for 20 years, there must be certain objectives which he is not telling. And let me spell out some of the objectives which I can just discern. One main objective was to prevent China getting into this zone, getting into Afghanistan and connecting with Central Asian countries and Iran and Pakistan, and also giving fillip to CPEC. So this was one of their objectives, to delay it, and I think they delayed it by 10 years. So we cannot say that they did not achieve their objective, although he's not saying it. Secondly, they never wanted Russians to have that north-south corridor and reach warm waters of Indian Ocean via this short route through Central Asian countries, Iran, Pakistan, and then to Indian Ocean. They did stop Russia for 10 years, 10 to 15 years in achieving the Russian aim. So they also achieved that. And also they have left Afghanistan in such a turmoil that for another 4, 5, 6 years, I think, Afghanistan cannot become a normal country. So I would say that, yes, as far as Al-Qaeda is concerned, that was achieved in the first 2 to 4 years maximum. They were for these objectives which I have just mentioned, and they have partially achieved those also. So I would not say that Americans have gone empty-handed, although whatever they have achieved at a very high cost.
Right. Now, Mr. Lodhi, how well prepared are the Taliban to handle the challenges faced by Afghanistan?
Actually, their expertise is fighting, and now that is over. So now they are into difficult phases. One, that to form a broad-based government. I would not say that they will succeed in making an all-inclusive government, but they will make an inclusive government, a broad-based government. They will succeed in that. It may take another couple of weeks. But then after that, the main, problem is that one is of economy, the other is of governance. Because for governance, you require some structures which are all demolished. So how do they manage that? That will have to be seen. So what my assessment is that for next 2 years, they will remain busy in stabilizing Afghanistan politically and from foreign policy point of view. And then in the next 5 to 7 years, they will be able to stabilize the economy if everything goes all right. So they will take more time, more than normal time, in political stabilization and economic stabilization. But actually, with the help of China, Russia, Iran, Pakistan, Central Asian countries, some other countries may also join, I'm quite confident that ultimately they will succeed. But the development will be a little slow.
Right. Mr. Lodi, Afghanistan is not having a formal government for the past 16 days now. What is holding up the government formation of the Taliban in the country?
I think basically they were waiting for a complete freedom of their country, which has just happened today. So we should start counting the time from now onwards, because unless you get a complete control over the capital and all other places, you cannot really assert yourself and assert your risk. So as I said, that now they will take a week or two weeks, and they will announce the government, which will be broad-based. But I also suspect that there will be some opposition, because those who will not be adjusted, they will shout foul. So it will take some time for them to, get over all these things. But I am confident that they will get over this phenomena sooner than what we expect.
Right. Defense analyst named Khalid Lodi, thank you for speaking to Indus News. And now we're moving on. Pakistan's foreign minister has called on the international community to differentiate between the spoilers and supporters of peace in Afghanistan. Shah Mahmood Qureshi made these remarks in a press conference with his visiting German counterpart, Heiko Maas. Qureshi said Islamabad wants peace in Afghanistan and the world must support it. The foreign minister said he expects a consensus government to be formed in the coming days in Afghanistan. He noted that Afghanistan is in need of humanitarian aid and called on the world to contribute to its stability. For his part, the German foreign minister thanked Pakistan for the safe evacuation of foreign nationals from Kabul. Maas said Germany will see if the new Taliban government honors its pledge to allow civilians to leave from Kabul airport. Maas said Berlin values its ties with Islamabad and stands ready to support Afghanistan's neighboring countries. China says U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan proves that arbitrary military interventions in other countries are doomed to fail. The Foreign Ministry spokesperson also condemned what he called the policy of imposing own values and social system on other states. In a press briefing, Wang Wenbin said the international community should respect Afghanistan's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The diplomat added the U.S. should provide necessary economic and humanitarian assistance to Kabul. Wang noted China will continue to support the peace and reconstruction process in Afghanistan, which he said will be based on respect for the will of the Afghan people. A Pakistani soldier has been martyred in an IED blast in South Waziristan. The military's media wing said the incident occurred during a clearance operation in Asman Manza area. In a statement, ISPR added that one of the terrorists was killed while trying to flee. It said the security forces immediately cordoned off the area to apprehend the terrorists. The martyred soldier has been identified as Supai Wajid-ullah and resident of Karak district. The Arab coalition says it has intercepted an explosive-laden drone launched by Yemen's Houthi rebels towards Saudi Arabia's Abha International Airport. In a statement, the coalition said Yemeni rebels' attempts to deliberately attack the airport is a war crime. It said it is taking operational measures to deal with sources of the threat to protect civilians and civilian targets. Earlier, the coalition downed 4 Houthi projectiles fired towards southern Saudi Arabia in the last 2 days. Meanwhile, Yemeni army said at least 23 Houthi rebels were killed in clashes with government forces in Marib province. This comes a day after the Houthis killed at least 30 Yemeni soldiers in an airstrike on a military base. Israeli soldiers injured 6 Palestinians, including one who suffered life-threatening wounds in the Khan Yunis city of the besieged Gaza Strip. The Palestinian Health Ministry said the soldiers stationed across the perimeter fence shot 3 Palestinians with live fire. Meanwhile, in West Bank city of Nablus as well, Israeli army injured dozens of Palestinians in a raid on a village. Palestinian media said at least 12 Israeli military's armored vehicles invaded the village after isolating it. The occupation forces arrested at least a dozen Palestinians in raids on several cities of the West Bank. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Mexico has reported 326 deaths and over 5,000 infections in the past 24 hours. Globally, the coronavirus death toll is over 4.5 million, while the caseload has surpassed 217 million. More in this report.
The number of cases from the Delta variant of COVID-19 continues to rise even in countries that have vaccinated most of their populations. In the US, more children are coming down with the virus and cases of adults under 50 are highest ever. Meanwhile, a new report has cautioned that seizures may be the only symptoms of COVID-19 in some children. Australia has signed a swap deal with Singapore to receive 500,000 doses of Pfizer's vaccine. This comes as the country struggles to contain the surge in Delta variant, with officials urging citizens to get vaccinated.
Not getting vaccinated is actually self-entitled and indulgent in the extreme in the middle of a pandemic. Go and get vaccinated and be fair to the rest of your community.
The European Union has removed 6 countries, including the US, from a COVID white list of places. Citizens from these territories are subject to entry bans for non-essential travel purposes, including tourism. Brussels has begun offering COVID-19 jabs in supermarkets and shopping centres to increase vaccination rates.
In the beginning of the campaign, we asked people to go to a vaccination center. Now we really try to bring as much as possible the vaccine to the people. And so we're selecting a number of areas where a lot of people are passing by. And so we try really to offer them the vaccine at their place, actually at their environment, where they work, where they go to school, where they live, and also where they shop, of course. And that's why we opened these vaccination points in the shopping areas.
In Japan, the health minister says it is highly likely that foreign matter found in Moderna vaccine were caused when needles were struck into the vials. Some Moderna shots were temporarily halted in the southern prefecture of Okinawa after foreign materials were discovered in vials and syringes. The health ministry says needles may have been incorrectly inserted into vials, breaking off bits of the rubber stopper. Meanwhile, South African scientists have detected a new variant with multiple mutations but are yet to establish whether it is more contagious.
In Pakistan, 118 people have lost their lives to the coronavirus in the past 24 hours. The health ministry says the tally of fatalities is nearing 25,800. It said the virus infected over 3,800 people overnight. This brings the positivity rate to 7.36%. The country has so far reported over 1 million cases, of which over 9,400 have been recovered. Pakistan has administered over 55 million vaccine doses to date. At least 4 Syrian soldiers have been killed in attacks on army checkpoints in southern Dhara Al-Balad region. This comes after Russia brokered talks to end the presence of opposition fighters in the area collapsed. Syrian state media said 15 soldiers were also injured, while 2 civilians were wounded in attacks on residential neighborhoods. It reported that attackers used rockets, mortar shells, machine guns and snipers in their raids. The media said the Syrian army responded to the raid and targeted attackers' missile launchers in several areas. The opposition forces blamed the regime for the escalation, saying troops were pressing an offensive to force insurgents to surrender. The spokesperson for the jailed Kremlin critic, Alexei Navalny, has left Russia. State news agency says Kira Yarmysh has flown to the Finnish capital, Helsinki. A Russian court has imposed 18 months of restrictions on her freedom of movement earlier this month. She was found guilty of breaching safety rules. Russian authorities have cracked down hard on the opposition ahead of the parliamentary election next month. Consequently, many of Navalny's most prominent allies have left Russia rather than face restrictions or jail at home. The number of hate crimes in the U.S. rose last year to the highest level in more than a decade. The Federal Investigation Agency reported the increase was driven by a rise in assaults against blacks and Asians. The FBI said 7,759 hate crimes were reported across the country in the past year. The data was collected from over 15,000 law enforcement in the U.S. This is a 6% increase over 2019 and the highest tally since 2008. The report says the offences targeting black people rose to 2,755 from last year's 1,930, while incidents against Asians jumped to 274 from 158. Meanwhile, the country's Justice Department has warned about the rising security threat of white supremacist groups. The UN Security Council has unanimously adopted a resolution renewing sanctions against Mali for another year. The sanctions include a travel ban and asset freeze on targeted individuals and entities, which will continue until 31st of August 2022. In a statement, the Council said the listed individuals and entities obstruct implementation of the 2015 Agreement on Peace and Reconciliation in Mali. A UN report says that human rights violations have soared in Mali, with an increase of 25% recorded in the second quarter of 2021. The sanctions regime on the West African country was due to expire today. The UN Security Council has voted to renew the mandate of the UN Peacekeeping Force in Lebanon for another year. In a tweet, Beirut's envoy to the UN, Amal Modalali, said the decision to extend the mission was reached unanimously after difficult negotiations. The UN sent the peacekeepers in Lebanon to ensure the withdrawal of Israeli forces after they invaded the country in 1978. In a statement, the Security Council condemned all violations of the Blue Line, both by air and ground. It urged Israel to expedite the withdrawal of its army from northern Gaza without further delay. In the U.S. state of California, residents and tourists in communities near Lake Tahoe fled as a fierce wildfire rode closer to the popular resort destination. Vehicles loaded with bikes and camping gear were struck in gridlock traffic that is stalled in hazy and brown air. The U.S. Forest Service says it is taking an unusual step of closing all 18 national forests in California to the public in the midst of a fire season. The agency also cited significantly limited resources available for wildfire suppression given the scores of large blazes burning in the state. More than 6,800 wildfires have blackened an estimated 1.7 million acres within California alone this season. Meanwhile, the so-called Alamdar blaze near Lake Tahoe has emerged as one of the most destructive and disruptive this summer. As the U.S. Gulf Coast sifts through the aftermath of the Ida hurricane, a heat advisory has been issued for southern Louisiana and Mississippi. The National Weather Service says heat is the #1 weather-related fatality in the U.S. More than 2 million people in the landfall area are reportedly under the advisory. Earlier, Ida weakened to a tropical depression over Mississippi, while heavy rainfall and a flash flooding threat continue to spread inland. More than 1 million customers in Louisiana, 60,000 in Mississippi, and 16,000 in Alabama are without power. Officials say some areas could spend up to the next month of their recovery without power. Japan says climate change is a key global challenge and it will work along the international community for global decarbonization. Foreign Minister Motegi Toshimitsu made these remarks during a meeting with U.S. Special Envoy for Climate Change John Kerry in Tokyo. He said Japan will make the utmost use of its technologies in order to meet its target of carbon neutrality by 2050. Meanwhile, Kerry responded by introducing Washington's efforts and future plans in the area of climate change. The U.S. climate envoy will also meet Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga and other officials to discuss the issue. He will also visit China for talks on cooperation for cutting carbon emissions. European stocks have inched higher, with investors digesting the latest economic data from Europe and Asia. Frankfurt stocks and at least FTSE MIB have gained over 0.5%. The pan-European stock 600 and the CAC 40 in Paris have also edged up fractionally. Earlier, Asian stocks also made modest gains. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.